And a lot of us, we call them pain in the butts. Yeah, that's fine. But you know what? They're coming up with like these negative things that somebody on the outside will be able to question, and therefore the decision.
You know what, Chris, what didn't happen at that meeting was nobody, like, they're supposed to use cards, they assign, give you a card, here we come in, you get a card, you sit at this table, whatever. And it's supposed to be, as I understand, arbitrary, it's not like selecting, ideally, quote unquote. In this case, from the front end of the hall, being the council end, nobody said, there was nobody say, okay, you sit at this one, you sit
Right.
at this one. So people kind of sat, but I think really specific interest groups to the issue appeared, use my term carefully, appeared to a casual observer that maybe they sat at tables of tried to, of like opinion, but it didn't really happen, And the one thing is that on the issue of membership, guess what? There's absolutely no way they were going to achieve consensus. So it came down to, can you give a show of hands?
But
Give a show of hands.
we're still not, we still don't have an answer yet as far as the petition that was given. Mohawk Council are saying that they had 100+ people wanted evictions, and they ran out and done it. Now you have 100 and something
I think it was
people that are on.
146 or
146
147.
people on a petition.
Out of what,
and nobody's,
8,500 official?
but nobody's
residents?
running to do anything. You know what I mean? Did that stop the process? We don't even know, because they're not saying. Or is it not good enough?
Right.
It's funny because Mohawk Council, will go by anonymous vote, or people calling in supposedly anonymous. Well, I don't believe that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, we're going to do it. I think they just use that for an excuse to do
The
something.
other thing is,
but-
you produce the phone logs.
Yeah, but they, even then they won't. I mean, even
I
then
don't know.
you're not
No,
allowed.
but-
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to face your accuser ever, because we don't allow that.
We don't allow, yeah, okay. Well, on that note, all right, I believe we have another break to get to, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up this week's edition of Straight Talk. Oh, welcome back to this very heated discussion that we're having here on Straight Talk. And we were talking about, what were we talking about before the break?
We're talking about the membership issue and
Okay.
and the meeting that was following, and it got really, the conversation that we had, it was is basically the same conversation that people are having all over this community, and I just want it on camera.
Right.
And I brought up the point that that ended up this conversation to be the way it was off camera,
Right.
and what it was is that the council itself, when something happens, somebody always gets blamed for it anyway,
Right.
regardless of who made the decision and how that decision made. And then I brought up the situation with Carl Horn, because he's heading up the evictions.
And he's also working on the drug issue.
On the drug issue. So he's taken two big files, and he talked about having people getting thrown out of town because of the drug issue, and I made a joke with him last time, saying that they're going to call you the Terminator because you're taking on the two big tasks, and you're going on camera and you're vocally saying it, and in the community, even though a lot of people probably support that, a lot of people are probably like getting upset or pissed off at that, and it's like, who the hell does he think he is? And and then the other counselors not saying too much about it, staying in the background. Every once in a while they'll come out and say something in support of that. Then we read that there was an issue with him and his wife in a local bar, and that conversation came up with something else. My opinion on that, and it's only my opinion, is that you should be able to have a life outside of politics, and that's how it would.
And then I quickly retorted and said, "Not if you're a chief.
Yeah, and how does
If you're
that?
an elected official, you've taken on the role of leadership. All right, there has to be certain values, and there's a certain value system that we have traditionally, but also just in general, when you're looking at leadership, the different values that you need to have to be able to be an effective leader.
But who makes those values? You know what I mean?
They're common sense.
You know what? Common sense is one thing, but being in a, whether it's a restaurant or in a bar, or, you know, I think you're allowed to at least sit down and wine. I don't drink,
Well,
but
yeah.
the thing was, when I did, I was there. So it's like, but if somebody, you have no control over what a person is going to do, and a lot of times my point was that they take stuff that is exterior and they bring it interior, and or they don't like what you're doing as a council chief, and they're going after somebody in your family.
Okay, that's
That's
different.
a different thing.
That's different.
That's a different thing.
So-
No, that's
However, I'm with Chrissy, when you start talking about, this is a political class.
Right.
Okay, we're talking about politicians, okay? Because to me, a politician
There's a
can
difference
be a
between-
leader,
Exactly.
okay? And that's what separates those politicians who become statesmen as opposed to those who are simply politicians. And politicians are involved with staying in politics. So you say the right things to get the most people to cast a vote your way. You get seen at certain kinds of things, and you do certain kinds of things. You put yourself on that pedestal. But when you do, okay, there is a standard, whether you like it or you don't like it. And okay, whether a person is entitled to say have their own life, they had better take into account everything about that and how it reflects not just on them, on their families, but the community as well. What does it do?
You have to conduct yourself at a higher standard, for sure. I mean, it doesn't limit, I don't think that it should limit you from going to anywhere, but yeah, you should at least conduct yourself at least in a professional way, you know, for people
In a
to.
professional way, and like I said, to me, it's like, it's also personally, because your personal life reflects your professional life. You know, and if you have certain standards that you hold yourself to, then those should be translatable to being a good leader. Not necessarily a chief or not necessarily a counselor, but a leader in terms of being part of this nation, or being a leader in your family, or being a leader in your community. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to, you know, like, if you're somebody who does one thing but says another,
And then that brought
it
up.
just doesn't.
And
to
that
me,
brought
it
up
doesn't
another,
gel.
that brought up another thing as far as in, not just the council, but not just councilors.
No,
I
no,
don't
no,
want,
no,
I'm not,
no, no, not
we're not
at
beating
all.
up just on them. It's
No,
only
no.
because of the membership thing in Carl, but with the, you know, the same question came up as far as what you're putting out there on the internet, the pictures that are out there on individuals, you know, whether you have alcohol in your hand or not, and whether people accept that or they don't accept it, or, you know, whatever you're doing is, whether you're doing something that is of a sexual nature. I'm not saying, you know, being naked on the internet, but what I mean is doing stuff that is out of character for somebody in that position, or any position.
So,
You know what? Go ahead, Jessica.
so should people in the public eye, I don't want to say be allowed, but should they be allowed to, like, have Facebook or something? Like, where's the limit?
It's not a question of whether you're allowed to have Facebook, but what it is really, it's a question of judgment.
Yes.
Okay, it's really judgment, and because look, let's separate this. The incident with Carl Horn and this whole complaint
There's
thing.
been a lot of allegations
okay,
and-
whatever.
so,
Okay,
yeah.
that'll get sorted out, and it doesn't say, well, Carl Horn. Well, look, he was, you know, you can, and all that stuff. It really, what it comes down to is, it's an opportunity for learning, Carl. Okay, you have to take
Most
that
young
into
chiefs go
account.
through that.
Okay, yeah, no, but I mean, if you go on Facebook, it's a very public thing, and you do things which that show a lack of judgment. Don't forget, it isn't just about you, and you don't like it if somebody comes along and says, "This is what you did in your last term of office, and I'm going to repost some of the stuff that you did." Okay, I mean that becomes, because it's used very politically too. I mean that has changed. It isn't just, you know, I'm bored anymore. Okay, Mattawagi has its own Facebook flavor when it comes to that. But
That's for sure.
no, it certainly does. But really, what it does is an opportunity for growing. To say, okay, I mean, because it isn't just about you. It isn't that you're embarrassed. It isn't like, oh, well, I apologized. Let's move on. Okay? No, because the things that you're doing they reflect back on the community that you put yourself in a position to say you represent responsibly.
Yeah.
And that's the issue.
And when you're a leader, I think you really need to bear that in mind before you put yourself in that arena.